Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Friends with Death Benefits. Justin here. With all me always is my co-host Tiff.
Hey.
Tonight we are sitting down. It is my mom's birthday. We're going to talk a bit about that and what that's like dealing with the first birthday of a loved one that's gone. Also, we have a friend in the house tonight, Rachel. She's going to be talking about what it's like being a mom going through grief and her connection and friendship with Tiff as it pertains to all that. Thanks for sticking around with us, guys, and tuning in. Enjoy the episode.
Hey, Justin.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm okay.
Well,
I'm okay.
okay's better than totally fucked.
That's,
Didn't I tell you that one day?
You did.
You said, I'm just man. I said, man, it's way better than totally fucked. And I like to think it made your day better.
It did. I mean, it's perspective. And you're a master of perspective.
And sometimes I like to get an F-bomb into the episode just right in the first 30 seconds.
Gate. You didn't even hold back.
I'm not saying it's going to be littered with them, but
from now on, we're going to limit Justin's F-bombs to an episode.
Well, I was gone for a week,
challenge?
He's
so
done.
I've got some catching up to do.
Oh, yeah, you were gone.
I didn't get to say fuck to your therapist at all.
Welcome back.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. You've been gigging, so you've
have
been out on the.
I hated missing it, but it was a good problem to have. To need to be two cool places at once.
Yeah.
I'm glad you held down the fort.
Yeah. Did you doubt that I could do it?
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, no, I knew you'd be fine. I was more just jealous I didn't get to hang out with you.
Yeah. Well, we have lots of ground to cover. So if ever, you have to. Now you owe me one. I could take a night off and you can interview somebody really rad. Mm-hmm.
That could get me unsupervised in the recording studio.
I take it back.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
So how's the week been? It's a special day today, actually.
Yeah.
What's the significance?
It's been a weird one. It's my mom's birthday, which is the first birthday that I'm experiencing without her being around. It's brought up a lot of weird thoughts for sure. Even the past just couple of weeks have been. See, I already got. I'm getting a little weepy already. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna suck. Give me a second. Suck it up. Get it together. I'm gonna talk about this. No, it's been interesting. I think about like weird things like last year. I haven't hidden the fact at all that my mom had a drinking problem, and last birthday she kind of blew me off. I didn't get to see her at all, which kind of sucks. But the birthday before, when she turned 55, I remember hanging out with her, and I got to thinking about how she'd be 57 this year, and my birthday is only 20 days after hers. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be 36. And it's like, well, she's 56, and it's like now I used to be 21 years younger than her. In a way, she's forever 56.
Yeah, I think about this.
And I think about like every year I'm gonna be just like that much closer to the year she was when she, died, and weird thoughts like that. I also had a weird moment out to lunch with my wife, and it was one of those. I listened because I'm a fan of our show. I listened to the episode last week. Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
And it got me thinking about like a lot of the stuff you talked about, got me thinking about it. And you had mentioned, like the different things Jameson had said that, like the holidays and stuff. And you said sometimes it's like the unexpected ones that really punch you in the stomach. I kind of call them grief sucker punches. I had one where there was just this lady with her two boys, like teenage boys. And the bigger one was like a good inch or two taller than her. And he could have been, anywhere from like 14 to 17. I don't know. He kind of had a baby face, but she was just messing with him. You know what I mean? Like fixing his hair and doing the tongue with the smush, getting the pizza sauce off his face. And like, it just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Kind of like, I remember that was my mom. That was how she was. Yeah. And she, like that kid hated that. And I'm just like, because he doesn't know.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, hopefully he never has to, you know what I mean? But it just like hit me like that's something that I'll never have again. Like just all the things, a million things all at once, just from seeing a mom eating lunch with her kid. Probably hit me harder than anything at Christmas or Thanksgiving did. And it hit me at a time when like I was doing pretty good for a while. You know, like I was having some putting days into weeks and where I wasn't really like getting too upset and just like there you go. You don't see it coming sometimes, but
yeah, left hook, man.
But yeah, it's Mom's birthday. She would have been 57 today. We're gonna probably try to do some things that she would have liked to do.
Yeah.
So
well, happy birthday, Deneen. We'll make it through it. We got it.
It's all good.
You need that protein shake?
I'm cool, man.
For that protein shake?
Stone cold.
So I know it's kind of not the same thing, but I thought in good spirit of having it be your mom's birthday that we would bring in a mega, what I would call a mega mom. You know, I don't know how you feel about your mom, but I mean, she, you know, your mom was kind of a mega mom, you know, until before she got sick.
She handled most stuff.
Yeah.
Quite well.
So we brought in a mom today, and before I introduce Mega Mom over here, I should make her a cape that says Mega Mom. I met this person. Her name's Rachel Young, and I met her post Ethan's death, and we met over the intrawebs. She had reached out to me, I think.
Yes, I gave you the card from the soccer from Claire.
Yes. Yeah. So Rachel's husband, Jamie, is my daughter Claire's soccer coach. And so not knowing their story really, well, Claire had just joined soccer club, and I think it was even before the first practice, we had to reach out to the club and say, hey, we had this crazy loss. Yeah. So, you know, I talk about the spiritual side of this and stuff a lot, but it was strategically placed that way, I believe, because Rachel and Jamie lost their son Colton almost a year at that time. So the November before Ethan passed away. So
yep, 19.
Yeah. 19, November of 19. So welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you.
So excited to have you. You're just been a good friend to me through this. And so I thought it would be really cool I have specific things I would like to talk about, things that we talk about a lot. Rachel.
It's very unique that we both I have two daughters. One currently is 14 and one is 13. So very interesting in our dynamics that we're raising girls the same age that had brothers that they lost.
Yeah. Older brothers.
Yeah.
And so we bounce things off each other a lot because navigating through this, I think, and I don't know your opinion on this, but I think raising their surviving children is the hardest part of this. For me, I think it's the hardest part.
It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're carrying around your own grief and strangeness, but you still have these young minds to mold and shape.
Yeah. And you don't want them to get lost in the Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your family, and then tell us a little bit about Colton and what happened to Colton.
Okay. So my husband and I moved. I'm from the area, but we moved up here from the Des Moines area when Colton was a couple months old. So we've been here pretty much our whole married life. And we had Colton, and then 2 years and 10 months later, we had Brooklyn. And then about 19 months later, we had Ashton. So we've got Colton, Brooklyn, Ashton. And neither of us played soccer growing up. And we went to it wasn't Park and Rec. We started out with the Y, young parents trying to get our kids involved and stuff. Took Colton to a soccer day there and found out that we both like to yell a lot. As we're like, run, Colton, run. And we're, kind of crazy first parents. We both walked away going, we didn't know we were going to be yellers because we're not really yellers by nature.
Right.
But when it comes to
sidelining at sports,
now we're yelling. So that kind of started a I don't know, about kindergarten all the way up through our kids' lives. We've coached soccer, whether it be park or rec, and then we went to the club and um, all the way through. So we've enjoyed that as a family. That's kind of our one thing that we really enjoy, and we do a lot of house projects and stuff like that together. So I don't know, that kind of sums up. We remodeled a house here in Mason City, and we thought, as a fixer-upper, we thought we'd be in and out 3 years before Colton was in kindergarten, and he was like 14.
Oh, wow.
When we finally got that project done, and life took a lot of turns and we got busy. But anyway, so then we did buy an acreage over by Rock Falls, and we've been there since 2017. So really haven't been there really very long, but we're loving it. We got horses and animals and dogs and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, you guys are kind of the outdoorsy family.
yeah, that was the other thing. Like, we all like to be outside. So yeah.
Do you have any cows?
Not currently.
So we have this friend whose dream is to, if you guys listen to the episode with Bo, his wife is like, her dream is to pet a cow.
She just wants to touch
So
a
like
cow.
part of me, like, I just saw that, like, the first time I met her, it just seemed like such an extreme want for her that I want to, like, if anytime I meet someone that has any type of farm life, I check into it.
I
Just
could hook her
we're
up.
gonna get her a cow
Okay.
to pet.
Yeah,
It's gonna
totally
have-
get her
total
a
If we
sidebar,
could
but-
facilitate
Yes.
a calf snuggle,
Yes.
Oh man,
Oh
that
my
would be
gosh.
up above and beyond.
Yeah.
mind.
We-
It's just talk about me.
yeah. No, my dad still has a lot of cattle, and I have good friends that have actually a Longhorn, Texas Longhorn, and they're
Wow.
pretty dang
Oh,
cool
wow.
too.
They're
so.
from Texas, so they
Oh,
are
that would
Longhorn
be
fans.
there.
That
You
would be
go.
amazing.
That would be cool. We'll have to
That'd be
hook
a
this
Something
up.
to talk about.
Okay,
There you go.
something to talk about.
Maybe have to wait till it gets a little warmer. Might be
But,
funner.
yeah.
So Colton's your oldest
Yes.
and an amazing soccer player.
Yes.
Just developed into this amazing soccer player.
He did that. He
Yeah.
was 6'4" plus by the time he was done growing, and he was just great on the field, and he was an amazing goalie. He had practiced. He'd come home in like 4th, 5th grade and just take that soccer ball in the backyard and whale it across, see as fast and far as he could get it and plant it, and he'd beat it against the back of the garage and then catch it as a soccer, the goalie part of it, like it would
Mhm.
teach him reflexes. And he wanted to know, he wanted to be able to place that ball and kick it, and he did. But he sought that out himself. It was a cool thing to kind of watch. Not every kid
Yeah,
has
the
a like, I
discipline.
want to figure out how to twist my foot just right. If I do this, it goes this way. If it goes that way, if I do it this way, it goes higher. And just as he got taller and more muscle, it was like he got more, like he had already developed the technique. And so it was like the power just came. And so, yeah, he about could, from the goal box, he almost could nail it to the goal box on the other side. I mean, it was pretty phenomenal.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool. So yeah, he had a lot of cool skills
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. I
Tall
mean,
kid.
so super active. Okay, just side note. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this or not, but like, isn't there something so cool about having a giant son? I mean, like, I don't know what it I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, but like just him towering over you and like going in places with him, and you're just like, that's right. This is
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why that is, but I remember even thinking that in the hospital, like
Yeah.
Ethan would stand up in this
Yeah.
great big human
Tall
being.
kid. Yeah.
And it's
And he-
cool, right?
Yeah, and he's like, well, and I'm assuming Ethan was kind of the tall one in his kid all the way through
Oh, yeah.
elementary and up. So
Yeah.
like, I'd walk into high school to find him or whatever.
Wasn't
And
hard.
well, no, because he was the tallest kid, and
yeah.
he was the tallest kid in his grade till probably his sophomore year. Like there was one other kid or two other kids taller, but
Yeah.
it was like he would look down the hall and he's looking
Yeah.
over everybody,
Yeah,
and
it definitely did make it easier
Yeah.
to find them.
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
the sucky thing is that now that he's gone, it's like I really don't like to change the light bulbs because that was a Colton thing, and
Oh,
because it was so
wow.
easy. Like I'd be like, hey, and I almost didn't have to tell him anymore because it was like he'd see a light, so he knew that was his job because he didn't have to go get a ladder or a chair. And so I was like
Yeah.
when he was gone, I'm like, the heck? And it was like, I swear that first month, like there's 5 light bulbs, out in the house. I'm like, it was like an dumb emotion. Cause if I have to go to a ladder or a step stool, it was just that
Yeah.
reminder he is
Wow.
not here.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
Jamie kind of, I think, realized, he kind of absorbed some of my light bulb issues, and Ashton
Interesting.
doesn't mind getting a ladder, but I don't like to go get a ladder.
Yeah.
Like it's on dumb things like that. Like I can paint on a ladder, but you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
emotional
would-
weird. Like,
No.
I don't
Yeah.
want to have to do
Yeah.
that. And I know like
Yeah.
someday I was going to graduate and leave, and it's like I can't change a light bulb, but it
These
was
are those
just
weird curveballs
Yes,
that we
like,
talk
just
about. Yeah.
stupid. So anytime a light goes out, it's
It's out
Damn
for a
it.
while. Yeah, right.
like Colton's not
Yeah.
here. Just a reminder.
Because yeah, it's a reminder.
It's just
It's yucky.
and it
That's-
kind of hits you hits you both ways. It sometimes makes you smile and smirk because it's dumb and funny.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm upset about a light bulb. But at the same time, it's like, so it's kind of silly. But yeah.
So Colton being very athletic, he also had he had a crazy talent for. Tell us about Colton.
the other crazy talent he had.
Yeah,
he had a lot of talents. He was just like I don't know how you create like a kid that can do everything, but he really could. I don't know that he was like the A+ book smart student. I mean, he was capable of working hard and get there, but it was a challenge. He wasn't a fast reader and those kinds of things, but he was super duper musical, played in the band, vocally just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Had amazing art skills. So I mean, just kind of all over the board. And then you throw this sports in there, but him and his buddy's not as tall, and they got the trampolines in the backyard, and I don't know what started it, to be honest with you, but his buddy Trent, was pretty good at doing some backflips and stuff. And so Colton's trying to figure out how to nail just a basic backflip on the trampoline. And it was the funniest dang thing, because he comes to me one day, this that junior high brain, but he comes and he's like, and by this time he'd kind of figured out how to do some flips and just a basic backflip, but they're trying to get into these more extravagant ones. And he's like, did you know that it's extra hard for a really tall person to do flips?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, duh. like, when you just now figured this out. And he's been trying to catch up to Trent and do everything Trent can do. And he's just a shorter, a different build. And so he's got this skill that Colton couldn't. And he was just really frustrated that he's feeling like a loser. Like, I can't keep up with Trent. And then when he realized that it wasn't capable, it was just a different challenge, then it was like this guy he dove in deeper, and he watched flippers on YouTube videos that were tall. Like, he processed it different, kind of like the kick the soccer ball and figure out how to tilt my foot to get it to what I want it to. So then he analyzed it different, and it wasn't, I'm not as good, I just have to do it different. And then the two of them could do these crazy flips, triple block. They had all these crazy names. I don't know. Kids from England everywhere out there. I guess there's a bunch of flippers. I didn't know that was such a thing, but YouTube videos made it kind of a worldwide deal. But they go around, flip off the side of a bridge, or flip off of anything they can find. And so the school, even around the school, some of the teachers would be like, man, that just freaks me out, because they get out of junior high or even in high school, and if there were snowbanks or anything, they're like, they got to go flip. And so everybody kind of around town and in school just knew that those two, and Colton it looked different because he had this crazy body, and he could make it do what most people most normal people can't do the flips they could do anyway, but he could do things that don't seem like they physically should be possible. Right. So that was pretty amazing. And they have a YouTube video, and they were kind of building their skill set, and it was something, again, they just dove into and just studied, and any hour they could get to go do it together, they did. So it was pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Cool bond.
What a cool thing to watch develop, not just physically, but through their friendship too. Yeah. What kind of son was Colton?
Well, of course he was the best, because he was mine.
Of course. Yeah.
What else am I supposed to say, right? Naturally. No. Colton was, he was a joy. He was a joy to be around, and he was fun, and he was helpful, and he was just all the right stuff. I mean, he went through his ups and downs and growth spurts of life and emotions, and he had some pretty big fear issues on and off in life that we had to help him through. And he was also kind of this, he'd give you a sass and get through stuff. But I mean, and all in all, I couldn't have asked for. And as his little sisters are growing up, and even when they were little, he was kind of like the good big brother. And then you got Brooklyn running around on top of the van, or I don't know. She was always doing crazy things. He just was a pretty solid, steady, even through his setbacks of just kind of some emotional stuff. He was still just always a really good kid. And he was the easy one. I always looked at him like, man, you are the easy one. These sisters are going to run me around, when it come to dating or anything. I knew, even in the hardest times of trying to parent him through things, I knew, he wasn't really that bad.
Yeah.
So
when you talked a little bit about, they had some emotional stuff. So he had some pretty irrational fears about, you getting in a car accident, right?
Yeah. Like 4th grade, just kind of random. I don't even know what the day was that hit, but it was And it lasted. I mean, it was 8 weeks of before we really started to bring him out of it. But yeah, he truly was terrified to be out of my sight. Like I couldn't go to the bathroom without him, couldn't sleep in a different room. Like he all of a sudden, a normal kid, went to school, did all this stuff, was in Boy Scouts. I mean,
Yeah.
all of a sudden one day he was like terrified that I was going to get in a car accident and would not be there to pick him up. And he just couldn't. I mean, it was awful. And we're walking through and he had this other condition that kind of arose at the same time. So I don't know if it was a combination of, your body doing weird stuff, but he had this, there's some weird name, but basically all the blood vessels in his entire body like burst, like the small blood vessels.
Wow.
And so like he
Yeah.
had this red looking skin everywhere. But then we realized that was internal and external. And like, there was like blisters, but like, like if you get a bruise or,
Yeah.
under the skin, like, yeah.
Contusions. Yeah.
So like he was like, he was walking around with a cane because he couldn't stand up straight because of the way it all hurt behind his legs and stuff. And he's like, it was awful. Like, and so we started this, like he couldn't go to school for a little while. And it was one of those things you had to wait it out. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't nothing you can do about it. And why it came, it was just one of those random weird things. So we kind of had like this physical thing going on, and then it manifested into something like this emotional side but I mean, it was extreme. And at one point I'm like, holy crap, is this the rest of our life? Am I going to be 80 years old or whatever? And Colton's going to have to live with me forever and go to the bathroom with me? Cause it was that like extreme. So we sought out some counseling and, a lot of different things, prayed through a lot of things, and started trying to figure out bridges to help, build him back in. And he did. And a lot of people don't even know that was such a drastic thing that happened. But then as time goes on from 4th grade on up, there would be just intermittent times when all of a sudden that fear would come back, and it was like, I can't go. Like, I can't go. I took him to this Opus. First, it was like 5th grade. I don't know, something at the Museum and Square that before school started in the summer, and a bunch of his friends were going to be there, and it was going to be this musical opportunity. And all of a sudden, we had most of the summer together, and so all of a sudden it's like, I'm just going to drop him off for 2 hours with like 10 of his friends. Like, it should not be a big deal.
Right.
And it took me an hour and a half to get him in the door, and I couldn't turn. It was like, you can't turn back, like I couldn't, it was already kind of like a setback, but I'm like, it wasn't about getting it, it wasn't about the music or whatever anymore. It was like, we just had to conquer that fear again before. And so every once in a while we'd have, and even his freshman year in high school, we kind of it was a different kind of fear, but it was like another battle over going out for swimming. And he couldn't get in that swimming pool. Like, and it was like this, he built up this fear wall, and we had to tear it up and pray over it and do a bunch of, I don't know, hard parenting. It was what it was.
Yeah. So easy kid, but when a lot of emotional hard stuff.
Yes. When that stuff came, that was when it got real. But his, like, he wanted to be a kid. He didn't even like who he was.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be that kid. He didn't want to have all these, he didn't like it, but it was big stuff. And it was, that part was exhausting to like walk through and pray through and try to figure out answers. But, every time he came out of one of those things, he just got more and more confident in who he was. And it was like amazing to watch him bloom. It was like, yeah.
Did you, as a mom, always wonder if this was something he was going to be battling with his whole life? Like, did you ever like foresee things in the future? Like, oh man, what will his life be like if he has this crippling fear?
Well, and I think that was why, even with my husband, over the swimming thing, it was like, we had sat down. I'm like, are we doing swimming? Cause we need to be on the same page. And he's like, yeah, we had a lot of reasons why it was the right, move for him. And, anyway, one point it got really nasty, and my husband comes downstairs after he went to talk to him, and he's emotional and crying and whatever. And it's just, and he was flashed back into some emotions that, we had walked him through some other stuff that was, challenging when he was little about this kind of emotional stuff. And so he's having that, like, you don't want to have to be the bad guy or the one that pushes forward, you get pulled up into your own emotions and it tears you up. And he comes down, and I said, something to him about, well, this is why we had to be on the same page. And he's like, well, I didn't think it was going to get this hard. I didn't think he's going to push back this much. And I said, I didn't either, but that's why we had the conversation at the beginning that said we have to be on the same page. And he, we both, we're finding it as we went, and he was like, yeah, I know. And so, yeah, it was at those moments, I'm like, this is why we have to keep pushing it. And now it's not about whether he wants to, if he thinks we're right or wrong. I mean, now it's like we have to finish what we started so that it's not so much about today as it is about later, And I'm like,
it's not about the circumstance you're in, but
you're going to go to work someday and somebody's going to ask you to do something that you've never done before, and you're going to be nervous about it, and you're going to have to do it anyway. And so, that was some of the conversation. He's like, I said, Jamie, how many things do your boss has a lot of faith in you, and he's always putting you in positions where you're like, yep, we can do this. And he sends you out to figure it out, and you do, because you're a problem solver. But that came with time before you felt, and that was like, this isn't about swimming anymore. We have to finish what we started, and he has to follow through so that he can conquer, so that when he is an adult, he isn't still, and it was amazing in so many ways to watch him come through it. But in the middle of it, you're like, it would have been a whole heck of a lot easier to roll over.
Yeah. For sure.
But
so quick question for you, Justin. So hearing that, we've talked about your mom and like your experience as the son and being raised by, did your mom push you to get uncomfortable? Like, you know what I mean? To do hard things like that as a young, or were you just the easiest kid ever?
I think I was. I mean, I was, so it was me. I have one sibling. My little sister's like 4.5 years younger than me. And we've always been very different in the way that I always thought about potential consequence before I did something. Like my mom was never like super mean or like quick to like through like harsh punishments or anything, but she somehow kept me healthily like in fear of like if I do something, it's not gonna be good. My sister's like, let's just do it, see what happens. And like just the total opposite. And so in that way I like to think I'm the good one, but like she definitely, when you said push me, like I remember I kind of just, whenever I hear stories about like you talking about your son like being really good at sports and trying really hard at stuff, I'm aware that I have potential that I keep myself from reaching. Like I'm good at things that I do, but I'm a person that's just really easily doesn't try as hard as I should at a lot of different things. Not everything, but I kind of just made my way through high school. And looking back on it, if I would have just put in a little bit of effort, I would have been fine. But that being said, I got to my senior year and I needed a half a credit more than I could get to graduate. And so I had to take a full load both semesters and an extra credit out at NIAC just to pull off graduating. And my mom was like, you're not going to not graduate. She's like, it's not going to not happen. She's like, you're not going to deny me throwing you a graduation party. She's like, you're not taking that away from me. I'm not going to have the son that went all the way through high school and then just didn't graduate. She's like, so she grabbed me by my hand and dragged me out to NIAC to do this extra credit and watched me like a hawk all year and made sure I passed. And I did it. I graduated, and I definitely wouldn't have done it without her for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, there are examples for sure where
she pushed you.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I see. And I can't relate to any of that because, I was rolling on through the emancipation station at like 15. So like, nobody's pushing me to do anything except for like out the door. So yeah. It's fine. It's fine. We're not going to talk about it this episode. Okay. So Colton passed away November of 19, which made him how old?
He was 16. November 23rd, Saturday.
Okay.
There was kind of let's just say a car accident with multiple vehicles that never really was completely sorted out, all the details. But fortunately, there wasn't a lot of injuries other than Colton's death. So that was, good. But it was, the wreckage was not good.
Okay. Just thinking about what you're saying about like not really knowing, because I feel the same way about Ethan. Like, just because I don't know, we haven't had the autopsy, and I'm not even sure that will give me much clarification. But how does that feel to not know?
I think what I've realized is for some people, I think it's different for everybody. And I think, for me, I guess it comes back to my faith. And I just really believe that God has a purpose and a timing in all things. And regardless of what it looks like on paper or what it looks like here on earth, like I don't have to necessarily understand it to know that God was part of it, And it's not like he snapped his finger or pointed his finger and said you were bad and you're gone. It doesn't have to necessarily be like that. I just know that for whatever purpose, this was Colton's time, and there wasn't anything that any one of us could have done or any place he could have been. It was all state. It was like all state performance was going on that night, and he had worked really hard. He had made Opus the year before. He tried out for all state, which all state, for people that don't know, is a big deal in high school and musical and singing and all that. But it just interesting because it was one of those days where he could have been 5 different places, and that happens to be where he was at that particular moment. But anyway, the all state thing was just interesting because like he'd gone, auditioned. Sometimes there's callbacks and they're kind of weeding out the last. And especially when you're one of the younger ones, like a sophomore, it's just, it's just harder to get in the door because there's so many they take. And so he had a callback, and it just happens to be that his callback pianist actually cued him the wrong note. And so when he did his audition, he, flubbed it a little bit because she cued him wrong. Yeah. And, whether he would have spoke up or whatever, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But he come home and he was just, you could tell it was kind of a big, he was really frustrated. And, but he was okay. He was, not every sophomore gets that opportunity, and he's got years to come. And I said, well, do you regret doing it? And he said, no. He's like, I'm like, you put a lot of work in. I said, he said, no. He's like, I gained so much and I learned so much. He's like, I think I could sing in front of anybody. And I actually had a whole bunch of people at my house that night. He did sing for us. So that was kind of funny. But we're having this conversation, just 2 of us. And, he's trying to make sense of it. And so I said, Colton, I'm sorry you didn't make it in. I know you worked really hard. I know you have an amazing voice. I really don't think it's the amount of effort or your voice. I said, I just said, sometimes things happen for a reason. And maybe there was somebody else that really needed that spot more than you did for whatever reason. I mean, God does, it was just one of those days. I'm just trying to help him see sometimes there's more to the story that we don't always see. And there was a reason that you weren't supposed to be there. And I can't tell you what that is, but, sometimes it's about somebody else, and I kind of gave him a couple examples of things in my life where that was, a circumstance. And so, he just seemed at peace with it. And it was like bummed, but we're moving on. And, but for a lot of those high school students that had worked hard with him, knew he had a good, they were frustrated he didn't make it to begin with. And then when they lost him on All-State night, and that could have been where, that judge had judged different, or that pianist had given a different note, like, you know what I mean? And again, back to like, these piano players are very well skilled and paid well. I mean, you know what I mean? It was just one of those random, that's just the way it went down, And so somehow that gives me, it maybe doesn't sound like giving peace to somebody else, but for me, just the pieces of the pie, I just feel like God has blessed us in so many ways, things even before, and just things like that. For some reason, it just makes me feel more like God had a purpose and a plan, and I don't have to understand it, but it wasn't as random as maybe it feels to some people. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Basically, the last conversation you're having with your son is that sometimes things are bigger than us, and not knowing that.
Yeah,
this is.
Yeah,
you're going to be even taking your own advice.
Even exactly. I feel like so many times my advice, the conversations I had with Colton the last couple of years, I swear God is like teaching me, and I'm listening to myself teach Colton. But if I had not had that conversation, would my perspective been the same? But it was almost like God's been hand feeding me what I was going to need in this moment to be able to stand strong and just live each day to the fullest as I go forward. And you can question all you want, but it's not going to change anything, and you go there, we're human. Like it doesn't like I don't have those feelings, but I choose to just try to let it go and move forward.
Well, just as much as you listen to the yucky side of it, you have to listen to the side that's being presented. Like I think about, mourning the loss of Ethan, and there had been several times, I was just thinking about this week, that I had grieved Ethan prior to this.
Yeah.
And, one being like when he decided when he was 8 that he wanted to live with his dad. And so I couldn't have his bedroom door open when he wasn't there. There was many nights I found myself on his bedroom floor crying. I was mourning the loss of my child then. Then again, when he was 18, when I had to evict him and he didn't talk to me for that year, I was mourning the loss then. And so I truly believe that God had been preparing me for that, because a lot of the feelings that I feel,
you've already lived them
I've already
to
lived
some
them.
capacity.
Yeah. And
and it wasn't a mistake.
It wasn't a mistake.
It still doesn't make that it isn't hard. It's still stinking hard, but you can almost feel, okay,
because I feel like it feels real to me. It makes my faith feel real to me.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure there are people out there that can explain those things away, and that's fine. But until you've lived that experience, and I'm not saying just the experience of losing your child, but until you've lived the experience of losing someone and looking back, there's going to be a point, even for you, Justin, that we're going to have a conversation where you're going to see things differently that happened before your mom's death, and I think, if you have any type of foresight or anything like that, I mean, it's a thing. And so for me, that's God showing up in big ways, and it doesn't always feel good,
No,
definitely doesn't feel good.
I definitely like just hearing you say stuff like that reminds me of conversations we've had, with how your faith's gotten you through a lot of stuff. And in a lot of ways, I envy that, because I'm not there. But the same thing, like I feel like the last 2 years I had with my mom, like she was a different person. Alcohol had turned her into a different person. And I've said, where it went from her being the person I wanted to talk to all the time to not sure if I wanted to answer the phone when she called. And that brings up all kinds of crazy feelings still now that she's gone. But the same kind of thing. It's like, I haven't gotten to that point where, I don't know. None of it makes sense to me yet.
Well, and even this, I mean, how crazy. We're going to put 3 grieving people in a room together and hope something good happens. I mean, maybe it doesn't make it enough, but there are a lot of people that you are reaching because of your story with your mom, and it's making the day a little bit easier. And
that's helped me a lot too, for sure.
It maybe doesn't seem like a good enough reason to have you. So wish your mom was here.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm very aware she can't come back. So, I mean, if you got to find the good you can.
Yeah.
And I think that I have allowed myself to do some of that for sure.
Yes.
Just getting messages from people that, have similar stories or, just said like, I didn't know something like this was out there and I didn't know it was something I needed to hear, but it's been helpful.
Exactly.
It's like, it makes you feel like you're doing the right stuff. For sure.
It's your story and the things that it's you and your mom's story that's made it possible for you to be brave enough to even do this. You know what I mean? And without her, you wouldn't be here, and not just because she has built into you the things that are positive and the strengths and the things you've, pushed through, just even the little bit I've heard about your relationship, it's her in you that's making it possible for you to be doing this. It's just pretty amazing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about parenting teenage girls.
Yay.
Let's talk about that. Justin, you can chime in at any moment when you're
resident expert on the subject.
Yeah.
Please do.
Like I said earlier, I think raising Claire through this, and I've said this before, but not that there's ever a good time to lose your brother, but when you're sliding into 14 and you're in the middle of a pandemic and that's your only sibling. And there's, so I look at like Ashton and Brooklyn, and I had my sister, we were that age gap. And, that was the fact that they have each other is such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it's the one time I rarely ever feel envy of people's lives or anything, but I just really transparent. Like I feel very envious of that for them.
And I think rightfully so. I mean, I think I would feel the same way. I mean, I have sisters too, and I can't imagine going through it without sisters, anything, even if my sisters and I are not even like really nice to each other at the time or whatever. We're always nice, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, even if I'm not even in a place where I'm super close to my sisters, I can't imagine doing life without them at some capacity. So yeah, like, and like you say, you had a relationship with your sisters too. So it's like, what that feels like.
Yeah. Siblings are the most.
Yeah.
I even said this at my sister's wedding. I was her maid of honor, and during the speech, I said, if you're an only child and you've never had the opportunity to have a sibling, I really just feel for you, because they, to me, are the most important relationship that you will ever have. It's the person you.
Now Claire has Reggie.
Yeah, now Claire has my freaking cat.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. We are kind of convinced that maybe Ethan might be in there. Like, that Ethan may be Reggie incarnate. But
I have an interesting relationship situation when it comes to siblings, because like I have a sister, but we've never really gotten along super well. She, as an adult, she's got a lot of demons. And it's kept me from being able to be very close to her. Just because it's unfortunate, but I can't trust her at my house. Yeah. She's, it is what it is. And it's interesting because I see like siblings that are close, and I'm always like, that's normal. That's not normal to me, but that's how it's supposed to be. And then when I met my wife 10 years ago, her little sister was 9 years old, and I just attached myself to that little girl. And like, she was just my buddy from day one. And now she's 18 and she just graduated high school. And it's like, I don't have any kids, but like when I hear people talk about their kids, a lot of like the feelings and situations, I've realized that I have some of those feelings towards her. Like the being proud of the stuff they do, and the being worried about them when they're doing stuff that you're not sure about. Feelings I probably wouldn't be able to pinpoint if I didn't have friends that were parents.
Right.
And at the same time, she's like really good. And you know what I mean? So it's like she's like, she's my sister, and I can have that sibling relationship, but at the same time, she's so much younger than me that there's that kind of, I don't know. That's as close as
combination.
I get
to. Yeah. I mean, do you see, especially in the early times after you lost Colton, what did you see as far as Brooklyn and Ashton's relationship together? Did they lean on each other? What was that like?
I think it was some of both, which I kind of feel like in our house, that's always like, even when there was the three of them, like you kind of have these two are not clingy, but like chumming together, and the other one's busy doing something else, and then it kind of flip flops. So I feel like for different times they were more chummy, and then other times they were still kind of doing their own separate emotional thing. I'm sure in the end, I don't know how it couldn't bond them more together, and in some ways, it's also really hard because you're not always going through the same grief moment at the same time. And sometimes that makes you feel distant from somebody because you're not. Like the one day, oh my gosh, Ashton's dancing around the house and being quirky and weird. And actually happened to be the day that her horse had died, which was in August. So anyway, just layers of things that have happened since then. But anyway, Ashton's dancing around the house, and Brooklyn's like, what is wrong with her? Why is she dancing around her? Like the horse just died. And I'm like, if you can laugh every time I cry, then she can dance around the house when her horse dies. It doesn't have to make sense. Right. And she's looking at me, because that was Brooklyn's reaction a lot, was I'm emotional and crying. And that was how she kept it in and dealt with it. Like I think some of her deepest emotional time frames, she's just laughing hysterical. But I come to you just have to learn to let go and not I don't even know. When the girls were at a friend's house after we had went to see Colton at the hospital after he died. And so when we went to tell him, all those dramatic emotional things, but we got in the car and I remember we're like going to drive home. Like this just really happened. And we just told them, and they get in the van and I turned and looked at them and I said, it's just, these are the things I'm just like, you're not prepared for these things, but these are the moments where I feel like God was just carrying me through and telling me to say the right things, because I look back and it has been so monumental. But I told the whole van, including my husband, that everybody grieves differently and none of us were going to do it the same. And we just have to allow each other to go through this, however it's going to be for each of us. And it was said, this is like 30 minutes after they just found out their brother dies. And now I'm telling them we're all going to do this weird grieving thing. And I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even know what I'm talking about, really, other than I just know that this is going to get really hairy and we just all have to give each other space and grace. And so I've just come back to that so many times, even when I'm trying to sort through and process the way they're reacting. And it's just a lot of just letting it be, and being okay with it and trying to talk it out and allow, I don't know, my husband and I do it completely different. And somehow we're all just learning to adjust.
Yeah. Because all four of you couldn't be more polar opposite of each other. Like
it's kind of
Ashton and Brooklyn are completely different. You and Jamie are completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so it's grief journeys are so different and so individualized because we're
and it's not wrong. None of it's wrong. And I think as time goes on, November was 1 year. So I'm still like, it's still like just happened, but it's like, as time goes on, I think you learn yourself, and like watching the girls now open up and share different things, and they're learning to grieve different, so it's a process that I think just keeps changing too. Yeah. Like it's not like this is the way I'm always going to grieve. It's just allowing it to keep happening.
Do you see them opening up more emotionally? And that doesn't necessarily mean like tears. When we attribute emotion to things, if you say to somebody, you're so emotional, it usually means you're a crybaby. But no, emotions
are lots of things,
lots of different things. Yeah. So do you see them opening up more emotionally?
Yeah. And I think it's just taken a long time to build trust. Nobody wants to be vulnerable. I don't think nobody really loves to ball in front of everybody. Some people do it more naturally than others. I'm looking at Justin right now.
You'd think I do.
Jason, Justin might really like to cry in front of people, but I'm just assuming most people don't. Yeah. And some Brooklyn is definitely like, I'm not doing that. I'll laugh because I don't know what else to do, that kind of thing. And so I think there's, even within your own skin, you're learning this is raw emotion you don't control. And you don't always have a chance, and as an adult, you've kind of learned to go through life and know how to maneuver it. But when you're 13 and 12 or whatever, like your hormones, and we got like all this stuff going on, and they don't even know who they are outside of grief, let alone throw the grief in there. And it's like, what happened to all of, and I think there's so much of them don't. I constantly trying to help them realize that none of it's wrong. And a lot of kids are feeling these things or whatever. And so I think it was at the point, slow baby steps of learning to talk things out. But even as I got to be more transparent around them, I don't really feel like I hid everything either. But I also, Brooklyn told me flat out towards the beginning, she don't like to see me cry because I look ugly. Yeah. I'm like, okay, thanks. So I'm like, note to self, don't cry around Brooklyn because she didn't like it. So I'm like, and I don't even know that might not have been what she really meant. She might have been like, when you cry, I can't help crying. And so don't do that. But from her 12, 13, you know what I mean? Like that was the way it came out. So I'm like, and I could have been really offended. Part of me was like, okay, really? Thanks. Like, I'm grieving
to be
too.
cool when you're 13.
I know,
and
right?
Crying isn't cool.
God, and you're ugly.
Such
ugly. You're ugly when you cry.
I just better be an ass instead.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I realize I just can't escape it. And I feel like me trying not to cry probably looks way weirder than me crying. So
probably very true.
And I quit breathing. It's like, don't cry, but you have to breathe, you'll die. And it's just not good. But
it's not a good look.
So I just kind of let it happen when it happens usually.
You have to.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a long process, maybe shorter for others. And even
Mm.
Ashton, I've learned that she hides more in a way that I didn't realize. I mean,
because she's the more outgoing of the two.
yeah, and she can be looking at you straight face, doesn't look like she's fighting back a dang tear, and I'm trying not to cry, and I'm like,
what? You're so good at this.
yeah, and I'm like, I thought
Good
you were
job.
just put together better, you know, not better,
Yeah.
but different. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm learning, you know. I don't know, but
Mhm.
Brooklyn and I literally, like, we're now getting to that point where we can laugh a little bit more about just the emotional part of it. Like, I think we spent 15 minutes the other night talking about all kinds of different cries there are. And like, there's this dry heave cry when you get to that point where there's no more water. Well, there's no more tears. Like, they're all dried out and there's just, your body still wants to cry, but there's nowhere to put those tears. Like, there's nothing there to cry out.
Yeah.
You're like, gonna go drink some more water. I don't know. Like, it was actually pretty hilarious. So I'm like, okay, like, and like, again, that reality, like, we were relating on a level that, like, we both are doing this. We might be doing it behind closed doors. We might be
Right.
doing it in different ways, but like, we've all hit that rock bottom. We've all cried. We've, you know, and then the other day we were laughing, like, you know, they say it's really healthy and good to cry. And we're like, why is it then that your body feels so damn exhausted?
Right.
And you're like, you just like, I don't want to cry anymore because my body just feels so
For real.
tired of it.
Feels like an emotional marathon.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
wild.
Like, why, if it's so healthy, why do I feel like such
Right.
crap?
Why
I mean, you
is-
feel emotionally better, but like, your body
Your
is just
body's
taxed,
trashed.
done.
And
Yeah.
why is the feeling after a good cry the same feeling as having a horrible head cold? Like, it's stuffy
I hate
and
that.
just
I hate
watery.
that.
and
You're like,
just
where's this
Yeah.
Sudafed?
flushed
My
and
My
head
eyes are
hurts.
still
Like,
puffy
for
from
some reason you want
Saturday's
to 7
meltdown.
up and you don't know why.
Yeah, it's just wild.
You almost need to like go take Sudafed or Tylenol or something before you start crying. I'm like, crap, I'm
Ooh,
gonna have a
yeah.
headache at the
Yeah.
after I get
Yeah.
done doing this. I
Feels
better
like
go.
It's gonna be an emotional night. I better get the neti pot.
It's like awful.
in the drugstore, just packing and getting stuff together. Oh, someone's sick at your house? No, I'm just gonna do some crying later. And I want to be ready.
It's exactly what it looked like.
My post-cry kit here.
Oh man,
It's awful.
they just give you a slide over a free pack of Halls just because they feel bad for you. Heard a Lipton.
That's my
Eucalyptus
help.
can be really soothing.
Kristen does a lot of crying. They seemed
Yeah,
really
they-
prepared.
You feel like they know what they're talking about. I mean, judging on the frowny face, and
Scheduled sadness seems a bit weird, but that's fine.
sometimes you gotta though.
Yeah.
Do you
when you're,
allow
when you're
yourself
real
space?
busy, you know, you gotta,
It's
you gotta
true.
find some time.
I know. You know, I don't know if it's a book I read or if it was a podcast of a woman who allows herself an hour every morning. So it's like her spiritual time where she prays and things like that. And that's when she does her crying. Like, do you allow yourself that space
You know, it's
or?
Interesting question. And I mean, I think everybody's built different too. I don't, if I did that, I don't even know it would work for me. And maybe it would. I don't know. I mean, I go out and do chores in the morning. There's certain times when I have built in like just me time because I'm going to go feed the
Mhm.
animals or whatever. And that sometimes just helps. And I'm a think really deep in the shower kind of person. I get,
Yeah.
you know, all kinds of
get that.
things come to my head, you know, but I just shared this last week. We were talking about me coming on the podcast with the girls and they didn't know this, but interesting because my husband, Jamie, our cemetery, I don't know why I call it our cemetery. We have a cemetery now. It's not really our cemetery. The cemetery in Rock Falls, where Colton is buried, is literally 2 miles from our house.
Okay.
And so like I mean, maybe that wouldn't be helpful for everybody else, but like for us, like it's very convenient if we do want to go, you know,
Mhm.
put flower, do whatever, I don't know, just drive through because it just seems like a good idea. I don't know. But my husband, I don't know, it's not exact, but let's say every 3 weeks, like that's what he does. He goes to the cemetery and I don't know what he does because I don't go with him, but he balls. He goes there and balls. He comes home. He finds me and he says, I just spent 20 minutes bawling my eyes out at the cemetery, and he gives me a hug and I give him a hug back and I'm like, okay. And that's kind of the existence of that cover. It is very much the same every time, but he's just learned that like you can only go so long before you have to just let out the emotions. And that's been a very safe, private thing.
Mm.
And actually him and I haven't actually, people find this kind of surprising, but you know, the headstone was planted and then I end up going with a couple teenagers and the girls and I've been there with handfuls of Colton's friends. But there was never like let's go look at the headstone
You've
together.
never been there together?
No.
Wow.
But it's okay. Like
Yeah.
again, back to that,
No,
what's right and
yeah,
what isn't.
no.
And I didn't really think much about it until
Yeah.
we're actually standing at the gravestone of his dad's. And it really hit me like, this is why we don't do, because his dad died in August.
Right.
So we go to the cemetery to see his dad's headstone. And I mean, I was aware that we hadn't been there together. And I'm like, if he doesn't, it's not a necessity to him, I'm fine with that. And then when he shares with me that that's where he's going to have his time, and like, this just, it needs to be his thing. But then when we're standing in front of his dad's and I'm like trying to hold back my emotion, like we're both, maybe it's okay we haven't gone to the cemetery together and just lost our shit together.
Right.
Maybe that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, and
right.
maybe someday we will, and I'm sure we will at some point. But as of right now, that is really working for him, and it's his own thing, and he doesn't necessarily need to share that with me. But yeah, interesting to this whole time, like kind of interesting. We've never gone together, but I just shared that with the girls because they're trying to process, we've never seen dad cry so much. And at the same time, like now that time is going and it's not like that initial at the beginning, but I'm like, yeah, he's, your dad is doing it in his own way. And I think it was refreshing for them to know, okay, he's still working it out.
Piggybacking off of what you were just saying, before we had lost Ethan, I had only ever seen Kyle cry once, and Claire was present also, and it was when we put our dog to sleep. And it's been we've been together for 18 years.
That was the first and probably one of the only times I seen Jamie completely. It was over the dog.
I have had the conversation because Claire is very much like Kyle, where they hide their emotion, especially emotions that involve tears. And I'm the exact polar opposite. I'm very emotional, and
I've seen you.
Yeah, you've seen it. I mean, yeah, it's fine. But conversations that I had with Kyle in previous years where it was like, I need you to be able to show that vulnerability so she knows that it's okay, because they very much are the same personality type, that it's okay to cry and show that vulnerability sometimes. And it's really, really hard for him.
Yeah.
And since we've lost Ethan, he's a crybaby.
Yeah, you can't. It's incredible. You can't. It's incredible. Sometimes you just can't even. You can't stop it. It just is.
Yeah, and it's been really refreshing to me because it humanizes him a lot, and I hope that Claire, because she still is not. And I don't know if that's your experiences with your girls
sometimes
too. But
it just takes time.
She's still just not there where she's having that cry. But Kyle and I, it's very rare that we will cry together. It does happen sometimes.
Yeah, but it's
like if we're looking at pictures and things like that. But the moments never align.
Yeah,
the heavy moments never align. So you always think like if you're gonna ever lose a child, that you're gonna be like, holding each other in bed and just sobbing and not getting out of bed for days and days, and you're just in it with each other, and that could not be further from the truth. Yeah. It's so personal and so separate.
And it's like when those moments do kind of come together, you're like, it's refreshing in one way, but it's still hard. And it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I went through a couple of weeks where I was like 3 crazy weeks in December where I was messed. I was just lost. I wasn't lost, but I was definitely emotionally, let's just say it was really hard. In Brooklyn we had really started to talk a little bit more prior to that, which was helpful. And you just have to keep showing up. You got to be in their space. You just got to, I think that's the biggest thing is when they push you away, you can't take it personal. You just have to keep being available. And eventually, things start to happen and they talk and I don't know. They need to feel your own emotions are so raw and emotional and you feel so vulnerable and it's so easy to get hurt. I mean, even myself in the last year, all the different dynamics of people and friends, if you think of yourself as a teenage little girl who already is feeling like the world's against her and nobody likes me. I mean, all the things you go through in high school, you know what I mean? So like, I think building that trust, like if I talk to my mom, but she doesn't react the way that I emotionally need her to, because she doesn't get it, then I'm going to feel hurt. And I don't, I think it just took some time for both of us to, am I making any sense a little bit?
That totally makes sense.
There was many times I felt even just like, Brooklyn, I got hurt by her reaction to me. And then I had to remind myself, like, she's not trying. It's just, I have to just keep showing up and love her where she's at. And that's sometimes going to be extremely hard because you just so want your cup filled too. But when you're dealing with your teenagers, I think even before grief, it's like, you have to not take it personal. You just have to keep showing up. But anyway,
And it's hard raising a teenager not to take things personal.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I went through it with
Yes.
Ethan. You went through it with Colton.
It's so different than
But
when they're toddlers and they
yes.
come running up and put their
Yes,
hands in the
yes,
air and they're
yes.
like, "Oh, hold me," and you're
Yeah.
like, "Yay!"
Yeah, right. So
they
much
love me.
easier. But then when you have this big heavy happen, it's really hard not to take things personal. And you're so right about just showing up for them. And even before, I have to say, admittedly, this has strengthened my bond and understanding of how I need to show up for
Yeah.
Claire. And, you know, I learned so much from being Ethan's mom
Yeah.
because of his challenges and
Yeah.
stuff, and how to be compassionate and how to really show up and just be present.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, you know how you want to press, right? Like
Yes.
you want to press, but
It's not about that.
it's not about that.
No.
And if you just show up,
Yeah.
it will come organically.
Go sit by the stinky teenager.
Yeah. Get in bed with them,
Yeah.
eat tacos,
Do whatever.
watch Grey's Anatomy, even though you don't like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
All that.
And the more times you do that, and I learned this, you know, from just being your friend, that just showing up, it will,
Yeah.
that's
Takes
the
time.
fruit of that labor
It's
is
time.
is them finally coming to you and feeling like it's a safe space to be able to talk about
Yeah.
these hard things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through that nosedive of time frame in Brooklyn. She was there. She was there for me. Like, I don't even know that she realized she was there for me, but it was a new, like, she was strong enough and we'd shared enough that it was like she was recognizing my weaknesses and she just showed up,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. And earlier on, I don't know that we were both too vulnerable to really be there for each
Yeah.
other in the same way that we wanted to be. You know, we were trying, or I
Mhm.
was trying, and she was still struggling. But when I came out of that, she kind of
Yep.
dipped down and have, you know, some emotional like days. And I pointed out, I said, Brooklyn, I said, sometimes with this family thing and you're holding each other, and like I was thinking of the whole you and Kyle not always crying together. And I've
Mhm.
noticed that with Jamie and I, like he might have a couple hard days or weeks or whatever. And it's, you know, you can't all be at the bottom at the same time where it's really bad, you know, but
Yeah.
it's almost like God continues to kind of bring us through this in a way that's like, I couldn't have been more impressed with how Brooklyn was there for me. You know, when I just needed her to go get me some food at the Christmas thing, because I just didn't really want to get up and move because I was just dang emotional. And so she went and brought me some food. I mean, little things,
Yeah.
but she was sensitive that I was struggling,
Yeah.
you know, and then, like I said, she kind of hit a couple of rough days and I said, Brooklyn, I said, part of this is that you were strong for 3 weeks and you didn't let yourself maybe be as emotional because you knew I was really struggling. And so I think as a family, the more you just keep pressing through
And the more
listening
you affirm.
and
them.
affirm, that's the other
Yeah.
huge thing.
Yeah, affirm, like, hey,
Yeah.
because Claire has showed up for me a
Big
number
time.
of times,
Yeah.
which you don't think they have the capability to do,
Yeah.
or it doesn't register in your brain until they're adults
Yeah.
that they would do adult things for you,
Yeah.
or that they would be sensitive to adult feelings and adult situations. And she absolutely showed up for me several times, and I was so impressed by that.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's also tricky with teenagers because you can't make it a huge deal,
No.
or they'll totally think you're a total douche.
No.
So you have to just be like, it just has to be kind of in
Yeah.
passing, and when it's
Yeah.
not in that emotional moment,
Exactly.
what you have to.
I appreciated when you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that was a really big thing for me.
Yeah.
And the more you affirm, the more it happens, the more it sets the tone. And I'm hoping, my hope and my prayer is that she will allow me to do that for her. We're not there.
Yeah. Like I said, Brooklyn and I are just slowly.
Yeah.
getting
And it's
there.
been a year. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not that I can judge it on your timeline,
Yeah,
but
no, it's
you
just
know,
different for every kid.
I do
Yeah.
understand that it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. And yeah,
It's a crazy journey, and there is no book.
no. Yeah. There's no. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I definitely had to like just listen to that. Like as a son and an adult son, like I didn't have, like I said, I wasn't close to my sister, and like my mom was like, I was a huge mama's boy. Just, I mean, in every sense of the word. So like, I feel like almost like the whole like I mean, other than my wife, I couldn't have done any of this without her. But I feel like almost my whole life up until that point,
Mhm.
like ended in a weird way. even though I'm still alive, because like most of my life it was just me and my mom. Like
Mhm.
I was even thinking about today, like she's the only one that knows stuff about me that I'll never even know or remember.
Yeah.
Like, because she was the only one around with me when I was little.
Yeah.
And
She knew you in the most
right.
intricate way, in a way, or
And like
yeah.
that's gone.
Yeah.
So that's weird for me. And I had to like, hearing you guys talk about leaning on each other, like your family, like I had to lean on obviously my wife a lot, but you were a big part of that over the holidays. You kept me from slipping, which was huge, including me and stuff.
Friends are hugely important.
Yeah. And I had other friends that were good too, but like I also I got to thinking about I kind of just wanted to let you guys talk, and then I'm like kind of recapping on my thoughts on what you guys are talking about. I find something that I've really been wanting for and like longing for is being able to. I wish that I had a cemetery to go to.
Mhm.
I'm sure you probably heard through the episodes that things aren't good with my mom's husband.
Yep.
And he has her remains, and so I haven't even got to see them.
Mhm.
But I have a portrait of her that was given to me for Christmas that I have on the wall now. And I noticed when you redid a lot of your pictures and stuff, you have that big picture, Ethan, and different things and kind of everything together now. And I find that I've catch myself looking at it's like right there, right in my vision when I sit at home. And I find those are the moments where like if I'm having a moment where I'm thinking about her or something, I'm like subconsciously just drawn to that picture.
For sure.
And I don't know if that's partially because I don't have a place to go like that. And I was also wondering kind of like, do you find yourself doing that? Because I know you have Ethan there.
Yes, I do have Ethan's ashes there on my piano. That's interesting that you asked me that, because I noticed subconsciously that I did this. I didn't even know that I did it, but I strategically have a photo within an eye shot of about probably 10 yards of each other all throughout the house, because no matter where I am glancing, I'm looking at these beautiful reminders of this. And it's hard.
It's hard.
Especially like because a lot of the pictures that I have are recent photos, the big, like adult Ethan, and they're hard to look at, but
there's something about that that's still comforting. They don't feel so far away.
They don't feel so far away.
But it's hard.
It's very hard.
If I stop long, I've got pictures obviously of too, but it's like when I look into his eyes, it's like, oh, why did I do that? Because you're not here.
Yes.
Like,
that's something I noticed. Like something I noticed that I never noticed before, which is strange because I fancy myself a noticer. Almost all the pictures, like especially like candid ones, like of me and my mom, she's giving me a certain look.
How's that not crying thing
Real awesome. I never noticed it before, but it was it wasn't something that
was not staged or posed
or new. It was something she'd been doing my whole life,
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It became more real now in a way that you hadn't noticed.
Yeah, and I didn't I didn't see it.
Wow.
Justin, is there a place that you have really fun memory? This just came as you're sharing, because maybe it isn't a cemetery. Maybe it's just, maybe there's a park or a place that you just have really fun memories or make you think of your mom. And maybe that could be like a place, because I don't think it's bad to have like a time, like you say, we were talking about a time, or like Jamie has a place, but it's also like he does that on the way home. Like maybe there's something else that's just really special where you could be like, I'm just going to drive there and have a mom moment,
This is my space for my mom.
That's something to think about for sure.
I mean, I think my girls kind of, in a way, Brooklyn spends a lot of time in Colton's room. And I think it's just comforting. They both kind of have latched onto different things that way in their own way. I think we've all kind of,
Yeah, that part kind of sucks, not being able to like, he's got everything.
So that's why I'm like, maybe it's a place. Maybe it's something different. Maybe for you, it's just something different. It could just be, and it, I don't know, give that some thought.
And
something will come to you.
Like, what
it's
I was
your
saying,
connection,
the
not somebody
closure
else's
thing. you know, for us not really knowing how they died,
Right.
the closure for you is not having that tangible thing.
Yeah.
And not having her ashes or not having a piece of her clothing or something like that. And so there's a I think in everyone's story, just by and large, there's a missing piece of that puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think, or my hope is that at some point I will feel like I'll feel okay with not having that last piece,
Yeah.
you know. But I am excited. So if you're listening to the show weekly, thanks first of all. And this is going to be a 2-parter. So tonight we have Rachel, Mega Mom, and then next week we are actually going to have, for the first time ever, minors on the show.
Oh, I like to act right.
Oh, get your F bombs out of the way now. Brooklyn and Ashton have graciously agreed to be on the show, and I never get nervous before a show, and I am so nervous about it because I mean,
that's right. They're nervous too, but they're. I think there is an element they are excited. They've been asking a lot more questions again.
Yeah. I thought that I would cry a lot during this episode, but I know for sure I'm going to be a mess at that because there's just something so pure.
Yeah.
And you know, like we were saying earlier about how you feel about your sibling, like, and I know we're going to unpack some of that, and it's probably going to bring some things up about how I felt or feel about my sister, even just to see them together. Like I have a serious,
and it's going to make you think of Claire. I mean, there's just a combination of all kinds of things.
That's the big one.
And it's, I had a, you know, it came up. I actually was like, I can't answer. Tiff asked me, hey, do you want to be on the podcast, talk about parenting? And I was like, before I answered, I'm like, I gotta go ask the girls. Cause if I'm going to get on there and who knows what we're going to talk about, I'm like, I'm not going to reveal all the dark secrets, but you know, like I didn't feel right not asking them, do you care if I go talk about you? And that's kind of how it came up. And I think Ashton thought I was going to ask her if she was going to be on it. So it was like, and then I realized that she didn't hear exactly what I said, but then I was like, she was fine with me being on it. And then I was like, did you want to be on it? Like,
yeah.
And so it kind of just happened. And when I asked them, but I asked them separately and they both wanted to be on it. They're like, well, what kind of questions? So I threw out just some random questions that came to mind, and their answers, I'm sure whatever they do in here is going to be amazing, but it did open up a lot of dialogue between all of us. And it was pretty amazing. And their answers were just real, authentic, and just one kind of talked more about like what it was like during the funeral part of it, raw, fresh. And the other one kind of, the questions came out differently, and she answered more like what it more like been recently. So who knows how they'll answer your questions, but I think they're at a good place. I mean, it's good. Like I said, it's still very fresh, but they're at a place that they are articulating a lot more than they were. It's been kind of fascinating to watch their brains.
Just for them to be willing to share their story on that shows.
I was really shocked, actually.
I'm shocked that any teenage girl would do that shit. You know, like,
it's
wild.
If anybody knows my kids, like Ashton, she's like, I'll go talk to anybody and do anything you ask me to do. It's no big deal. And then Brooklyn,
excited that you spent an hour with me and still want to send your children to hang out with me. Makes me feel good about myself.
I haven't seen you yet.
I don't know if it's maybe just show them a picture beforehand so they don't walk in here going, holy.
Oh, they've already seen your picture on the
I apologize.
Thing. They did. Brooklyn already said you looked a little scary.
I'm not so bad.
I said it'll be okay. She's like, are you going with? Well, yeah, I'll be.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I refuse to grow up, but kids love me. Usually, like teenagers, young kids, I'm fun. I'm a good time.
You are fun.
Okay, well, I think we'll see. Brooklyn will put you to the test.
Yeah, I'll be fun.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait just to. My one goal usually every episode is to try to get Justin to cry, but I'm really
so nice.
I'm really hoping to
it's not that
just
hard,
see
though.
a little sweat on his brow. We're gonna really just.
I think you're truly underestimating me right now.
I am. I know I am.
Don't be surprised if you cuss, they will tell you that my mom's going to wash your mouth out with soap.
Oh my God.
Which I've never actually done, but that's what they tell their friends before they come to our house, which I think is stinking hilarious.
That's great. That's super. Okay. Justin's like,
oh crap.
He's got this maniacal look on his face.
I really am a respectable,
He is.
kind gentleman of a
He can
human
do clean
being.
comedy. He can do
I really am.
Honestly, they probably won't say anything to you, but they probably will give you a look. I could just see their look. Either way, it'd be fine. They're not that sheltered.
We have a friend of ours, a comedian friend that just started doing comedy not too long ago, who lives in Clarion, and we did a show in her town, and she's got 5 kids that go all the way from 5 years old to 17, and they're all girls except for the one boy who's the second youngest. And I got there, and these kids loved me. Like, we had dinner, the youngest one was showing me her troll dolls. The teenagers are showing me their paintings that they do, and they thought I was super cool. So I have no doubt that these ones will too.
That's right. No doubt. No doubt. So before we get off the air here, I want you to share with this is the first time that you've met Rachel.
Yeah.
And I know what a loving soul mega mom over here is. Tell the listeners what happened to you tonight.
Oh.
Well, for longtime listeners, for those that have been a fan of the show since the shaky beginnings, we talked about how a lot of people don't know what to do for you.
Yeah.
When you're in the true shit.
Yeah.
You know, like the early stages of
yeah.
I don't even know how to be myself right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the go-to more often than not is people want to make you food, or they want to, just let me cook you something, bring it over.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got none of that.
None
of that. I've never been sadder in my life. And I didn't get a casserole, nothing.
You're
and
sad, and your stomach is growling.
For those of you that are familiar with the show, you know that I find that to be a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, and Brooklyn's like, I think we should do that again. I'm like, well, people don't just start doing it again just because it's been a year.
Yeah, I've been looking.
Like, she was all like, "Can we have them all just do it again?"
Looking for reasons to get sad. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's just like when I don't want to cook dinner, I'm like, man, I really wish something horrible happened to me right now. I don't know. I got a sick aunt anywhere. I could call somebody and, hey, remember 9 months ago my mom died and you said if there's anything I needed? Well, I didn't get to the grocery store today. But that being said, I received a lasagna tonight, and I'm just so excited about it.
Rachel brought Justin and me lasagnas
with like accessories, like ready to go.
It's like, how many times do you listen to somebody whine about lasagna?
Oh,
I'm like,
right.
You gotta have a lasagna.
Well, I don't know if I whined or not, but
I don't know.
I mean, I think I had a legitimate gripe there, but
she's a mom. She knows what
fair enough.
Whiner
No,
sounds like.
That's the thing with the crying thing is like you guys are talking about like the teenagers not wanting to cry. I was a big crybaby when I was younger, and then I kind of like, I don't know. I don't remember crying much through my 20s.
Yeah.
But when this happened, I came out of retirement. I really did. And I feel like the second leg of my career, I'm really doing some of my best work.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
You could teach lessons.
It's so good.
It's
so good. So yeah, we'll be enjoying some lasagna.
So excited about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.
You're
welcome. It was very thoughtful, very nice.
And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I'll just preemptively thank you and apologize for letting us borrow your children next week.
I think everyone's going to be glad they were a part of it.
Hey,
I want to make sure of that.
Okay.
I'm going to be a perfect gentleman with your young ladies. I promise.
I'm so excited.
I promise.
It's awesome. So thanks for tuning in this hour. Super glad to have you here with us as we continue to walk the weedy path.
I just want to say one thing before we go.
Are you sure only one?
Yeah, well, I want to say a lot of stuff, but I like her. She's fun. I like when people keep me on my toes. It's good stuff. It's a compliment, believe it or not. Yeah. I try not to throw a lot of tips away because the big head and everything. And she's just not very nice to me, so I don't feel like having that one-sided relationship with her. But it's good as someone who's missed being around. There's that feeling of momness. And knowing you two, how much you guys care about your kids, and just hearing you guys talk about it was nice for me tonight, and I appreciate you both for it. So,
thank you.
So, tune in next week. Until next time.
Hang in there, guys.